Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome in to Object Catchup. This is where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, we will be doing a super large episode because we are gonna be watching the WebzForevz show, yes, because THREEEE, the show that is currently ongoing by WebzForevz, is going to release an episode pretty soon. I don't know when, but today, roughly, at some time, right? But of course, we have to get to it. So hopefully, within a day or two, I'm realistically, to be honest, expecting this to take 2 days. We're gonna be taking a look at the entire of the first season, the entire of the second season, and where we are in season 3, right? However, that means that we obviously need to start 12 years ago because we need to start with excellent entities, which, yeah, I mean, it is a doozy, man. It is a doozy. This is, of course, you know, one of the big shows. It's got episodes over 1 million views and everything. So it absolutely deserves this full coverage. And yeah, if your current coverage of WOAS, which is the other show that had its big release, is postponed until after I do this whole WebzForevz showcase, okay? Alright. So, we're going to start off here with episode 1 of Excellent Entities. These thumbnails are definitely being reworked because I don't trust these episodes to be anywhere near that quality because they're 12 years old. Excellent Entities, episode 1, Really Epic Show. Go! Alright, that is episode 1 of Excellent Entities, and yep, it's 12 years older. Yeah, I mean, like, of course, you gotta kind of ground yourself in the time span. 12 years ago was when the hell was this? This was in March of 2013. That this release. Like, that is a while ago, you know? Like, I mean, BFDI was already going on for some time. I think we're already BFDI within. However, like, you know, the concept of other object shows was really, like, a thing, you know? That we were doing too much, you know? So of course you need to point that out, and of course this show is this episode is very rough around the edges. You can really tell, in the way that, for example, there's nearly no proper audio editing, right? So you notice music doesn't exist. Sound effects don't exist. They're all made with the mouth, right? So when the thing is shaking, it goes like, wow, instead of an actual sound, right? So there's nearly no sound bites. However, like, it does what it needs to do. It's watchable in the sense where, like, you know, the characters' actions are fully understandable at the end of the day, right? And that is the most important part. And at least, to be 100% honest, even though I'm saying that there's no music, that's honestly fine. I'm gonna be honest. I much prefer a show with no music than I prefer a show with distracting music. This is gonna be 100% for real. Or, like, you know, music that's too loud or something, which I'd be worried about a show like this doing, right? So I don't mind the no music's here for now. To be honest, that's A-okay with me. But yes, we start off here with the classic line, "I'm bored," as you do at the start of object shows. So Broomer coming in with the muffin to be like, yo, we should host an object show. And we get the chocolate bar to host the object show. And they go like, okay. And they host the object show. Where the challenge is called, wait, what is the challenge called? Don't lose your lunch. Oh, yeah, because it's vomiting. So basically, you'll be sitting in these chairs, and they're going to be spinning around 360 degrees constantly at high speed, which, of course, makes you dizzy, and therefore makes you want to throw up. So the idea is that you get put in these 1v1s, and the person who throws up is up for it. It doesn't get to be the team captain, because it's not an eliminate challenge. It's a 1A this episode. So, yeah. I mean, how is it as a challenge? It's not a great challenge. Well, first of all, because, haha, it's kind of weird humor. Right? The same way that toilet humor is kind of weird. It's not like, bro, the freaking vomit, like, come on. But at the same time, it's also not an amazing challenge in the same way that bracket challenges just tend to not be great in general, right? Because they're kind of just, you know, they end up doing a repetitive cycle, right? Like this episode, but at the end of the day, follows a repetitive cycle, right? It ends up having like a thing that happens, and then one of them, like, Thing spins, one of them barfs. 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 Maybe they do a different, like, interaction before, but at the end of the day, the same thing happens 6 times, right? And again, I know that this is old. Right, I know that this is old, so don't criticize the show that's 12 years old. Yes, okay, I understand. However, this is advice that I should still point out there, right? Because at the end of the day, this was WebzForevz, at least as far as I'm aware, their first audio episode, right? Yeah, I should check that. I don't know if it's the first ever episode, but, like, it's one of the first, right? Which means that at the end, however, for a lot of people nowadays, they're also making, one of their first episodes. So you gotta, be capable of, looking at this stuff and be like, why isn't this great? And it's like, this is why, right? So yeah, the thing that I will say, however, is definitely, I say, clutching up, is that the audio quality is pretty good, actually. It definitely sounds like a phone. However, it's recorded in a quiet room, which is desperately necessary, It's recorded in a quiet room, which means that there's no background noise. The background noise it's very absent. So, even though, like, the VA itself isn't amazing, right? Like, it's a little quiet from time to time. Even though it's got like an okay amount of emotion, but, like, it could always be more. However, in general, the fact that it's actually recording in a quiet room is really helping it out, because at least I get it, what they're trying to say, right? So, yeah, overall, it's an episode. Episode number 2 of Excellent Entities is titled Bubble Blowing. Alright, that is episode 2 of Excellent Entities. And you see, so, like, alright, here's the deal. Here's the deal about this, okay? And I'm gonna say this again. There is this one thing, right, where when, like, there's hindsight to a lot of watching stuff like this, right, where it's like, I'm looking at it right now with context of what the show becomes, and therefore I can have a renewed perspective on it because of that, right? That is, at the end of the day, an inevitable bias, right? It seeps into every analysis of everything, right? It's just, what does this show become comparatively to what it is now? However, hear me out on this, okay? I believe that you can tell a little bit that this show wanted to try to be more grand right from this episode. You can tell, because it tries. It's that type of thing. This episode tries everything. Like, for example, I mean, like, even, with a lot of people's first episodes that I see nowadays, is like, I don't see them, for example, try out lip syncing very rarely, right? Like, lip syncing, for example, is the type of thing that's just, a little bit complicated to do, and it's a bit annoying. A lot of people don't do it for their first, small shows, right? Which is perfectly suitable. However, you can see, for example, it gets attempted here constantly, like every single line. Does it get done successfully? No, really. Being 100% honest, it doesn't work out as well as you'd probably hope it does. However, like, in general, it still lands everything, right? Like, it still tries everything. It tries, and it tries some bit, like, it tries storytelling, it's trying to do some writing things, like, oh, this is the more villainous character, this is the cheating, this is the reference, this is the alliance, this is the, like, mean one, this, like, like, all of this stuff. Like, it is trying these things. It is animating, sometimes different camera angles as well. It's a bit rarer, to be honest. Like, it's mainly just zooming in. Does it even try? It doesn't try that many camera angles. It kind of just takes the same shot and zooms it. So yeah, it's not really trying backgrounds yet. But it didn't make a challenge that requires it, right? So like, in general, but, like, it has enough of an understanding of different locations to realize to put it on a different patch of grass majority of the time. That way, you can realize that they're in different places, right? Because they walk to different places, right? It's these type of things that, like, it's, you don't usually think about. However, like, the fact that this show thinks about it means that it was trying to be grand, right? Again, then it goes, like, for example, the VAing, right? Like, just the factoid that we've got ourselves, that, we paid enough attention to get a microphone in a reasonably quiet space, right, where, like, you can hear the static still. It's not perfectly, removed. However, it's still there. Everything's looking good, like, it's promising. Like, of course, it's scuffed in every single department, but the fact that it tried is a big motivator, because trying, already to improve on these aspects at, this age and this everything, immediately, just starts to, like, sort out. Hold on, should I check what age this was? Hold on, let's actually check. Let's do a little bit of research. I think that's useful to know. WebzForevz, let's see. You are 24, so if this was made 12 to 13 years ago, you'd be probably 12 to 13. Yeah, I mean, that, yes. You see, that is, like, that is very young. So, like, in general, that is the thing with it. Okay, we didn't talk about the challenge. So they picked their teams. I don't know why, by the way, but this episode cannot decide for the life of it what aspect ratio it wants to be. It's square in half the time. It's widescreen the other half of the time. It can very clearly tell when it's square that it's trying to be widescreen. Like, when it's doing the team picking, it says, oh, yo, person off screen, come over here. Well, why are they off screen? I'm sure they're right there. I don't know what happened, but it's just because the aspect ratio is a square. I don't know what's going on over here. That doesn't make any sense, but okay, sure, it was a problem. The challenge ends up being bubble blowing. You each get a bubble blower and blow the biggest bubble to win. The teams go off on different tangents. Like, one team tries to steal the ones from the other team, which ends up actually being a very successful strategy. So, yeah, because they end up managing to, just take every single one from the other team and also beat them up. So that was a very successful strategy. In the meantime, Broomer tried to steal a super large wand that was just there, that, like, was left there by our host Chocolate Bar. However, that turns out to be cheating because it wasn't the one that you were assigned to, which means that they don't count, which means that their team is up for elimination because they got soloed, as everybody thinks got stolen, and then also cheated. So, yeah, who's getting out? No, I don't really know. I mean, English Muffin seemed to be a bit more of the arrogant type. However, again, it's 2013 voters, right? Like, it's one of those things, is like, the mentality at the end of the day, it was just different. Like, there's with just the way that communities evolve, right? There's a subtleness to how different people vote, right? Where it's like, slowly as the community evolved, that nowadays we do inevitably look for mildly different things in a voting system than we did at the time, right? So it's difficult to predict eliminations from the past like this. I'm predicting it's the English Muffin. However, I don't have any, like, I wouldn't believe that to be correct in a lot of situations. All right. Okay. Episode 3 is titled "The Evil Woods of Doom." Go. Alright, that is episode 3 of Excellent Entities, and, okay, so this was a thing in episode 2, however, it has been taken to extremes in episode 3. My ears are confused, please help. The show can't decide which ear it wants to be heard in. Oh my gosh, bro, how did this audio, sometimes... watching a show with headphones, I've noticed that it's solid because, of course, it gives you the finer details. But at the same time, is that, damn, part of me did wish that I was watching this like a phone or something, and then I didn't notice this. It was like, oh my god, it's like the show, okay, is being recorded. No, it's like you're hearing the show from, like, the POV of a camera operator. So it's like, if I can't, so it's. No, from the POV of the camera, so you'll hear it in the left if it's a certain shot. You'll hear it on the right if it's a certain shot. Like, it's so weird because it's so echolocated. Like, I don't know how you even do that, because, like, it plays on the what? How does this even work? So, like, when it's on the global shot, you can hear everybody. Then when it zooms in on Chocolate Bar, you can hear it on. Dude, hold on, wait. Yeah, so, hold on. When it zooms in on Micro, you can hear it on the left here. However, when it zooms in on, like, English Muffin, you can hear it on the right ear. And then it's like, so it's pretty much like we're hearing the show from the POV of the Muffin. Like, it's so weird. And then the Chocolate Bar, yeah, when it's zoomed in, you can hear it on the radio. It's really interesting. I don't know how that's ever. I don't know how that happens. It's gotta be straight up. I don't know how that's a thing that happens. You know. Because it's like, hold up, is the audio mono or is it not? Because, you know, like, it's kind of like, for example, another show we watched, BF4, like, the audio was never stereo, which means that it always played only on the left ear. And I was like, okay, well, at least that makes sense. It's like, I don't know how this happens, right? Like, like, what, how does it change what ear it's on? But, we end up having some interesting shenanigans. Anyhow, we have ourselves the challenge. First of all, starting off with a recap of the previous episode. Yet again, I don't believe recaps are necessary. However, I will say that it's 20 seconds, so I think this definitely gets away with it, right? Then, English, Russian, and Broomer make a bet. Whoever loses, because they think that each other are getting eliminated, whoever loses gets to poop, should poop on the elimination area. Broomer loses, unfortunately, with 15 votes. They uphold the deal, I will admit. So fair enough. People don't tend to be big fans, I guess. However, yeah, that is a thing. And then eventually they get sent to the elimination area that is called... What the hell is the elimination area called? It's called the ECP. Alright? So that's... Yeah, interesting. But then we end up having ourselves the challenge, which is none other than Survive in the Forest. Alright, Survive in the Forest. And remember when I said lip syncing was a thing that this show was doing? No. It gave up. It was like, shit, more than 3 minutes of episode, can't do that. Yeah, they just gave up lip syncing. I guess we were trying. I don't know what happened. Because, hold on, did this show have a release schedule? Hold on, episode 2, when does episode 2 release? Give me a moment. Released on April 14th. It's released on June 24th. And then episode 1, wait a minute, yeah, April 14th. Then this released on March 25th. No, there isn't really a release schedule. Like, it's roughly the 4, like, it's days that end on 4. That's about it. Like, there isn't really a schedule. However, yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, if you think, yeah, it releases on 24th. But other than that, not really. So, like, I don't really know what is going on here. Because, like, okay, it feels rushed. I guess we were just bored. Let's be for real. We were probably just bored. Alright, and then we did lip sync. I don't really know what happens. The writing here is kind of confusing. Like, yo, are we going to last here? Yes, we are. But no, we're not. But then we're going to get scared. And then we're not going to get scared. And then this team gets safe because they got one for their team or whatever. Like, I don't really know what just went on. And then the teams got named. One of them is called the team. Hold on. I like to call. What? Hold on. Wait. Team Volume. And then the other team is Team Punching Bag. Okay, Team Volume and Team Punching Bag. We got it? We got it. Alright, let's use that to head into the next episode of Excellent Entities, which is titled Mega Pizza Pig Off. Okay? Okay, let's go. Okay, that is episode 4 of Excellent Entities, and okay. I'm still trying to figure out how is this audio even possible, right? Because, I mean, like, it's not done on purpose. There's no way. Why would you ever do this on purpose? Therefore, like, something's going on. Right? So, like, how does this work? Okay. Because it's definite, would it? I don't know. Okay, hold on. So, I believe that this audio is geolocated, which is weird, because that doesn't make sense. However, it definitely is. Like, depending on the shot, it'll play either on the left or on the right ear. Like, the audio generally depends on the shot. So, like, what I'm currently getting at is that, like, it's almost as if we have, like, dude, I don't know how to say, I don't know what it would be. Okay, I would say that it would probably be like in whatever programs, animation software thing, okay, you can place the audio in a place. Right? If that makes sense. So that means that, like, for example, you place the audio in the elimination zone. Right? Like, in the elimination where chocolate bar is. for example, right? So you place the audio there. And then what happens is when you zoom in to the right, because of the camera zoom in, it takes the audio location, which was placed at the center of the platform, right? And therefore makes it play only on the left ear because the audio is arriving from the left of the current camera position, right? Which is what the fuck? Like, huh? And that happens again on the right when it's on the left side, right? So that means that the audio literally has to be located in the middle. The audio is positioned in the universe. What the fuck? How did we even do that? What pro did that? You could do that in Flash? What? Shit. That's crazy, no? What? I had no idea. Okay, because that's presumably the issue that happens here that makes the audio so unbearably unbearable, right? But yeah, like, okay. I mean, I guess we understand, but that's interesting. So we have another little mini recap here to start. Yet again, it's all, hey, if it's 20 seconds, I mean, I don't mind 20-second recap. That's Gucci, right? So we don't mind it. And then we end up having the episode start where we have a couple of voices change a little bit. You know, I'm feeling somebody like Micro changes voice quite a bit. Micro is the microphone, so they end up having kind of a vocoded voice. I think I might have heard it in the last episode, but maybe didn't catch it. But either way, yeah, they do have a vocoded voice, which I think is pretty cool. And they end up apparently being super, like, they're apparently super forgetful, and they really want to hang out with the Muffin trio, right? With the trio Muffin, Click, and freaking Cracker, who, despite not really liking each other, they still kind of just vibe. So yeah, either way, on the team we end up having the elimination, where yet again Micro interferes about 1,000,000 times, and Chocolate Bar is like, yo, please let me do my job. Then they do their job, and it turns out that the eliminated character is Nelly with like a lot of votes. Nelly was not a character that interested me, to be 1,000,000% honest. However, you know, we're in this show, so yeah, it ends up that they end up getting eliminated. So what else do we even have? Okay, so yeah, we have a couple of chit chatter, and then we have the challenge, which is to eat pizza. Pizza eating challenge. Yes, you have to eat a lot of pizza. It's apparently the spiciest pizza in the entire world. Which I mean, that's pretty impressive. The spiciest pizza in the entire world. However, this ends up being more of a minor inconvenience. Actually, it ends up being, okay, it's an easy ploy of writing to fall into, right? Where like you kind of write a thing and then never consider what the consequences of that thing would be for every future interaction, right? So we're like, oh, we'll make the pizza super spicy, and then that way with one of the interactions we'll go like, okay, so you're eating the spiciest pizza in the world, so your flame's about to be, so your mouth's gonna be on fire, right? So you do that joke, and then the problem is that, hold on, that should apply to everybody, because I mean, it's the spiciest pizza in the world to everybody, right? Like, it should realistically be a problem, the fact that it's super spicy for everybody, but it's only a problem for one person, right? Which is kind of the thing, the problem that ends up happening there, is that, right? Where it's like, we wrote a detail that is important and would usually change how the episode would go across. However, we write it for the sake of doing one thing and then we forget about it, right? That's pretty much the issue. And again, this is another writing tip, you know? Like, you gotta think about these things, you know, when you watch this. It's like, yo, why was this not good? This is why, right? It's because you wrote a challenge with a detail that was there entirely to do a thing, and then didn't realize the rest. So you have to make your own challenges and think about the edge case scenarios for it, rather than making it just based on conveniency, right? Okay, yeah. So that way, you know, this show, you can learn a lot of lessons from this show. I understand why we got the scholarship. But yeah, so we end up having apparently get one glass of water as well. Which, by the way, where is the glass of water? Didn't one team use the one? Is there a glass of water? Did anybody even drink water in this episode? Nobody actually uses the glass of water in this episode. I mean, okay, no, one team comes in with water, but that's like a bucket of water that just gets thrown at their mouth. That is not a glass. That does not count. I'm about to be absolutely for real. Like that. So I don't really know what's going on. Eventually a splash gets onto Click and they end up glitching out like crazy. I will admit that is a funny glitch that just happened. That's kind of funny. And then so we end up having Muffin, who English Muffin, they're going, gave me the pizza. They end up having Chalky shove pizza down their throat constantly, so that way they don't need to eat it because they can't grab the pizza themselves. The other team ends up just kind of going over to the Kmart, all of them at once, because it needs 4 people to go buy 2 batteries at the Kmart to revive Click, and then Click just comes in fucking eating, going, right, just proper eating master right there, right? So even though they're the eating master, what they end up doing is that it's still not enough, right? They just don't have enough time, so the epic duo of it, the microphone plus the English Muffin end up still managing to take the challenge home. Yes, they do manage to take the challenge all the way home. However, at the last second, the last piece of digestion from English Muffin gets thrown up, which means that they lose the challenge because we have 110, which is less than the other team, right? However, at the end of it, do not vote. We are having a surprise voting in episode 5. Hold on a minute. Is it a surprise voting if you just told me about it? I think I'm gonna be absolutely for real. I think that stops classifying as a surprise. Like at a certain point, like it's just kind of not a surprise anymore. Like it's just like what are we doing? But yeah, all right, that is episode 4. I mean, overall, like, it's okay. You can see like the mild faults in it, as I managed to point out, right? That like this, of course, at the end of the day, yes, it has mild faults to it. Of course, it does. All right. However, like I can still see beyond it, and see that like I see the vision, I see the problems. However, I see the vision, and it's like, if this stuff eventually got cleaned up in the show, which presumably it did, then yeah, but this stuff's getting pretty solid, right? So, I'm currently seeing the potential, but I'm curious to see if it's going to deteriorate before it gets better, or if it's just going to be a constant roller coaster up, Like, it's going to be interesting. Are we going to go on the uphill? Are we going to go on the downhill? Is this audio ever going to get fixed? I don't know. But it's time for episode 5, which is titled Voice Cracked. It's the first episode over 10 minutes, so here we go. Okay, episode 5 of Excellent Entities is upon us. Well, I mean, it's upon us for a long time. It has never stopped being upon us. But, yes, it is indeed an episode. So, we have a relatively interesting episode because we have one of the debates that sometimes happens with voices, right? Because, like, basically, sometimes you swap out VAs, or sometimes you just simply say, this character needs a different voice, or sometimes you yourself get a different microphone, right? And then the characters just sound different as a natural aspect of that, right? So then the question kind of switches itself and becomes, okay, should this be implemented, right? Because it's kind of one of the details that's a little weird, right? Because like when a quality of a voice, when a voice just suddenly swaps or doesn't swap, it's like, hold up, should this actually be written into the show, right? I see that a bunch of people have tried this from time to time, and I believe that it usually doesn't quite work out. Because like I think a lot of the time they make it that, like, for example, I don't remember what show was it? God, I'm trying to remember what show it was that did one of the examples. But basically, okay, so I don't remember what show it was. I think it was like BFMS or I don't remember. But like basically there was a show where like a fly went into one of them, went into one of their mouths, okay, went into the throat, and then the voice changed, right? But then the problem is that like, that's weird, because like, hold on, is it just a fly down your throat the entire time, and then it leaves, but the voice remains the same for some reason? It's like, wait, what? Right? So then it's kind of one of the things where they make it kind of a temporary, like, oh, I'm sick, we're gonna switch it up. But then it's like, no, hold on, I mean, that's not happening, though, because, like, then if the sickness ends, then you're gonna sound back to normal, theoretically, right? So, it's not a permanent voice change. So, yeah, I personally would probably recommend just probably not switching it up, because there probably wouldn't be many ways to make it sense, like, not like writing in a switch up. However, if you're going to write in a switch up, I believe that this is one of the better ways to do it, where apparently what happens is they got somebody to hook up microphones to the character's vocal cords, which however damage their vocal cords, which makes them now sound all different, regardless of whether the microphone's there or not, because it damaged the vocal cords. Sure. It's a very similar ploy than the same ploy that actually, I'm just gonna say it, okay, that the CFMOT ended up doing, right, where like they ended up cutting off a vocal cord, and then it's a different voice now. So this is a way to do it, and it works. However, like it is like a thing. But yeah, anyways, let's actually get to this episode. So we end up having a longer intro, like a longer explainer here, 35 seconds rather than 20. I believe that is a good sign when the explainer is longer, though. Like, hold on. Basically, I want the explainers to be short. However, I think it's a good sign if the explainer is longer, because that means that there was more in the episode. Right? Like, I mean, that's a good sign for the last episode. I did think that the last episode was one of the better ones. But yeah, we end up having the eliminated contestant B. Who ends up being the eliminated contestant? Oh yeah, the eliminated contestant ends up being by a surprise contestant vote of the contestants from other shows. Oh yeah, gonna be for real, I don't recognize any immediately. So I don't know if they are from other shows or if they're like are they from major shows? I don't really remember, to be 100% honest. However, like, I'm sure the amount of knowledge, the amount of times where shows this age have appeared on Catchup is like 2, right? So, like, in general, my overall knowledge of this time span of shows is so small, right? Like, it's nearly nothing. So, I mean, yeah, I don't really know what was going on around this time, but I'm sure these were people that did indeed exist. So, we end up having it ended up ties on Chalk, and then the last person was about to vote Chalky, but then eventually finds out that English Muffin was being super arrogant and ends up voting English Muffin instead. So English Muffin gets eliminated. Let's go. I just like to point out, I believe the proof that the audio is geolocated arrives in the intro, in my opinion. Because, like, if you notice the intro, it's a left panning to the right, and then you'll see that the audio kind of starts out well, right? And then it starts to slowly shift itself to the left, which is what you would hear if the audio was you would hear it on your left ear if the audio was if you are going to the right of the audio, which you are, right? So, like, yeah, the audio, that is whack, man. That is crazy. The audio is physically there. That's insane, dude. But yeah, we end up having the challenge be a singing contest. Indeed, it is. For some reason, we randomly start making we randomly diss like the Black Eyed Peas or something. I don't know who is this guy. I'm sorry. No, hold on. This was like the singer of Black Eyed Peas. Surely, that not the singer of the Black Eyed Peas. Why are we dissing the Black Eyed Peas like that around? But I don't know. We're just for 13-year-old WebzFoverz was like, oh no, but Black Eyed Peas, don't like him. Don't no. Okay then. But yes, then we end up having everybody's like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Micro ends up having that basically a microphone on the microphone ends up creating just a freaking massive sound, right? So that means that the micro ends up passing out can't hear anything. It's super loud, so we end up taking out that microphone from micro. The voice still sounds different, and they eventually end up passing out because a bucket of water randomly gets spilled on the floor, and the microphone dies because of it. because it glitches out of the system because there's a technological thing. I'm gonna be 100% for real. I don't know how that impacts. Hold on. Okay, so yeah, no, that doesn't make sense because water. Last step, yeah, you see what I mean when I say that, like, this show's writing just mainly suffered from like not thinking about it enough, right? Because you just gotta think about it. You're like, hold on. So last episode we had a thing where a water splash and Click all glitched out. Okay, yes, but now in this episode where water sprays on everybody, somehow Click is completely fine. Click is completely fine, and Micro gets glitched out. It's like, wait, what? Why? What's going on? What the hell? You know, it's like, it's kind of weird. Because you can tell that it's inconsistency because we didn't think that far into it. You know, like, we just didn't think that far into the things that happen, right? Which is, you know, like, it's a fair, like, it's small details, but yeah, it is indeed a thing. So yeah, we end up the day after the main character complained like, "Yo, the other fellas still get it." So apparently the eliminated contestant over in the MCP or whatever it's called, the ECP, ends up still chilling there. By the way, what the hell is this ECP? They look like they're in a flippin'. What is that? That looks like, you know, Windows Vista installation. They look like they're in that. Okay, like, the freaking, this blue ass, it's like this, like, it's not even blue, it's like is that turquoise? Is that what turquoise looks like? I feel like turquoise is brighter. It's like a dark turquoise. I know that there's another name that settles this problem. Is it aquamarine? I don't know. There's like a name for this. That settles it pretty well, but I don't remember what it is. But yeah, so basically you have to sing, and if you sing at the wrong timing or you sing the wrong note, you will get electrocuted, which stops you from singing, and therefore that's your time. Okay, that's how the challenge works. Good challenge. I'm gonna be honest, solid challenge. I mean, it's a little goofy, but at the end of the day, we get to see characters sing different songs, which is fun. Every character gets to go, which is fun. It's an objective method. We can directly see how they're performing. It's not based on, like, something we can't see, right? Which is nice. Kind of like how, for example, in the pizza eating challenge, right? It's not as good. Because, like, here, we can directly see how much time's passed. We can literally see. But there, we can't count the amount of pizza ourselves, so the number feels way more arbitrary than it would be in this situation, right? So, that's pretty solid. Muffin starts to sing. They ended up not singing very well. They apparently could choose what to sing, which is interesting. I mean, of course, the best idea would just be to sing a song that it's really easy to sing, you know. But like, we ended up having, what songs did we sing? I don't know. I don't think wait. I don't know what song Muffin sings, to be honest. No, I've heard that song. Sorry. I've heard that song. I don't know what song it is. I don't know the name. But yeah, then we ended up having Cracker sing what did you sing? Hold on. It was yeah, Eye of the Tiger, yeah. And yeah, you got glitched out at the Eye of the Tiger. But you see, for example, because we just didn't get to the hard part faster than the other thing got to the hard part, they survived longer. So yeah, it's very much so, like, this challenge is definitely more about song selection than it actually is about the song capabilities, right? So yeah, for example, right? Yeah, Micro eventually gets glitched out and gets excused from the challenge. Yeah, so like, for example, Chalky ends up knowing what to sing. So Chalky ends up singing, what did they end up singing? They sing a Starship, which starts off with a rap verse. And at the end of the day, I mean, of course, a rap verse, it's still a bit dangerous to sing a rap verse because, of course, there's the timing element of it as well, right? However, it's easier to hit the notes in a rap verse, right? Which means that, like, it's pretty solid. I mean, the Starships is pretty easy, right? Let's go to the beach, let's go get away. They say what they're gonna say. You know, like, it's pretty simple. Although I'm not gonna lie, I do wish we got to the Starship chorus. The Starship chorus is pretty good. Starships were meant to fly, hands up and touch the sky. It's pretty fire. However, you know, Nicki Minaj was low-key cooking with that one. I'm not gonna lie. Nicki Minaj proceeded to fall off like crazy, but they cooked with that one. So, yeah, alright. Anyways, what am I on? I'm talking about Nicki Minaj. Jock ends up being safe for that one alongside Micro, which means that everybody else is up for elimination. Cracker, Click, and Muffin. Who's getting eliminated? No idea. Dude, I mean, Click was meaner, I guess. But, like, I don't know what we're really voting for this time frame. Like, I don't really know. But yeah, we have another singing moment. We really were down. We were singing. We were like, yo, I'm gonna sing this episode. I'm gonna find every excuse I possibly can to sing. You know what? Fair enough. That's what you want to do. You can do that. And hell yeah. Okay, episode 6, part 1, episode 6, part 1, of Excellent Entities is titled Debut Day. Ooh, debut. Let's go. Okay, that is episode 6, part 1 of Excellent Entities. Dear viewers, the episode was delayed to the fact I've only been on the computer twice in the past month and a half. Okay, you know what, then fair enough. How the hell you made this episode in 2 sessions? What? Hey, yo was working. This locked in. Yo, that's crazy. Okay, so we ended up having okay, well, first of all, I mean, the main thing that definitely comes off from this episode is that we end up actually having new asset. Yes, pretty much everybody has a renewed asset. The main thing that they have added is a shit ton of shading to them, you know, like they nearly every asset has this hue to it where like the shade, it's like a dark in the middle and a slowly lighter shade that fills in the outside of it, right? I don't know what it's called. It's probably called like radio or something. However, yeah, basically that is a place on every character, which gives it the vibe. It works okay for some. I think it works pretty well for Chocolate Bar. It works pretty well, say, for a character like Broomer, as I'm seeing there from the intro. However, I think for some other characters like Cracker or like Muffin, I don't really think it fits because that's just not really how those things would look, right? So, but yeah, I see it. It's the assets. I mean, it's an improvement, absolutely, all day long. So, yeah, we now have the elimination, where, however, you will be sent to the bog, the BOG, the box of gremlins, if you are eliminated. It apparently has gremlins that eat you. Entirely, literally every single part. So that's not great. Because, you know, I mean, we do have recovery centers. However, you know, like, what, you're just gonna recover it back in the bog. Like, is it just over for you, right? Like, is it just an infinite death loop? And it turns out that the contestant that is going to the bog is Click, who eventually ends up flying away. To get eliminated with 51 votes, which is the most. They didn't really do much wrong, except kind of their song was a bit mean. Click's design also, I guess it has a more global rework. We've kind of, yeah, I can tell that we're kind of undecided about how the hell Click's asset should work, right? Because it kind of looks like a remote, it kind of doesn't. It's kind of like, I see it, but then I don't, but then eventually it makes it clear, oh no, these are volume sliders. Hold on. But yes, they fly off, and then we find out that there is not a challenge because we're doing a debut. Yes, debut, but we're not doing a debut in the classic fashion. We are doing a debut in a different fashion where we end up having it's like kind of Got Talent style, right? Where the host just pick kind of Got Talent, you know, who they want to join. They'll pick 2 people apparently that will join. So Chocolate Bar comes in alongside some other fellas, the Gummy Bear and also the Fish Tank. I don't think the Fish Tank ever even speaks. But yes, so they consider a couple of people. They consider the Unicorn Horn for being super fit. They consider the Moonstone because they can read people's minds. So you know, we use that as successful blackmail. So all right then, sounds cool. And then the Mango for just being a general all-rounder. However, 30, that's more than 2, which means that Mango will be fighting off against Unicorn Horn in the second part of this Excellent Entities challenge. Of this part 6 to see which one of the 2 is going to join and make it into the show. So it's gonna be interesting. Chalk remains at the bog. Nobody seems to get them out. Have they been eliminated? Yo, I mean, that could be true. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why it would be. Because usually if we're eliminating a character at random, it's usually for a reason. But, like, I feel like... Oh, God. No, because, hold on. Cast Chalky Manga. No, because, like... Usually, like, for example, Season 1 eliminated a character at random because, like, they had to invent it because they fired the voice actor. However, like, in a case like this, I mean, like, you know, it's just the voice actor. So, I don't know. Maybe we just did that because we felt like it? I mean, I don't really know. But, yeah. Overall, do I think that these new assets were an improvement? Yes, it absolutely does improve the show. And the lip sync as well, I would say, is definitely improving. Like, this show is improving itself. It's doing that work on the side to get to work, start improving itself, and it's nice to see that the show was indeed doing that, even if, again, of course, it does hurt it a little bit, at the point of like the proper consistency of the show in a way, right? Like, that's one of the strong suits of BFDI. BFDI didn't improve that much in terms of art style, but that makes it a super consistent show throughout, right? However, BFDI starts at a higher bar. So yeah. All right, part 2 of episode 6, Coconut Chaos. Here we go. Okay, that is episode 6, part 2 of Excellent Entities, man. Like, one of the things about these super olden shows, right, is that, like, these proper classic ones, is that despite their size, right, that they eventually grow themselves into, right, it's just that, like, it's so interesting because they feel so personal. A show like this, like, it feels so direct. Like, no show that knows is gonna get over 100,000 people watching it every episode, right, and peaking at over 1 million, knows is going to write, "Sorry, mega and amazing, I couldn't get on Skype to get your upper lines, so I had to voice them." Nobody would ever say that with the knowledge that so many people are gonna, surely you just sort it out in the prep, right? Because it makes your show look less for real, and you want the people to, have the context to like everything that they're watching to have the context for it, right? So then it's like, it's really interesting when it's like there's just these details, like, it's just thrown out here that are just like proper something, So there's some stuff going on. Anyways, we end up having Chalk get their voice fixed, which is epic. We got a freaking fixer voicer thing, and then we have the challenge. It's a very Survivor challenge. Swim to an island, grab coconut, bring back. Swim to island, grab every coconut. You do it 3 times, win. So yeah, Mango and the other fella and the Unicorn Horn are challenging. Unicorn Horn, however, is cheating because they end up having a floaty. However, they also have a propeller that they can use, but apparently cheating is allowed. Did you know? You can do anything you want as long as it's not part of the rules, which, I mean, I get fair enough, right? I mean, I guess. So the propeller is allowed, but you can only bring on 1 mango at a time, however, which makes the other fella wasn't doing. So that means that we wasted up a lot of time doing that. Then eventually on the last second, using some mysterious tactic, we managed to get over the last second, and Mango manages to clutch up and win against Unicorn Horn. Good job. And then at the final moment, that means that Cracker, who bet $5 to Chalky that Unicorn Horn was going to win, needs to pay up. But yeah, that's what you get for betting. Don't gamble, kids, no matter how safe you think the bet is. This is an advertisement against gambling. Thank you, Excellent Entities. However, so then there's a rock, paper, scissors between Mango and Moonstone next, right? And then those two get to decide which one is gonna make it to the thing. However, yeah, it's interesting in the comments. Yeah, right. Yeah, the comments do point it out that, like, hold on a minute, Moonstone didn't win the rock, paper, scissors. How the fuck? I thought you could read minds. And yes, that is a valid criticism. I mean, like, I'm sure there's logic to it. That I was like, oh, I don't want to pick or something. However, yeah. Well, first of all, being able to read minds doesn't necessarily mean you can read actions, right? Like, at the end of the day, you can always be like, I can think, I'm gonna throw scissors, I'm gonna throw scissors, I'm gonna throw scissors, and then my hand does rock, right? Like, those are different things. However, despite that, it is still true that, like, it should probably just, like, what, like, how is that a thing? You know, you should probably win. Mango eventually ends up picking Muffin's team, however, which means that the other team who didn't get picked ended up being up for Elam. So Chalky and Micro, who were busy, fixing their voices, ended up being up for Elam. I mean, that probably is, I don't know, because you could feel bad for both characters. I would say in this episode, though, I would personally say Chalky should get eliminated, because at least Micro did stuff, right? Micro was made the machine, fixed it, was nice, right, overall. While Chalky, I mean, you can feel guilty about them because they were in the BOG running away, nobody fetched them and had to run away on their own. Like, yes, that is all true stuff. However, despite the fact that that is true stuff, I still do think that my microbe did bore in this episode, so they realistically should be chilling. And I'm not gonna lie, being 100% for real out here, I do actually enjoy the gag that plays at the end of the episode with Muffin getting cut off right as they're about to say the line and the episode ends. That's fun. Fun joke. Yes. Alright, speaking of Muffin, they're the next thumbnail. Episode 7 is titled Obstacle Overload. Here we go. Alright, that is episode 7, and I don't know, this type of stuff is interesting because, like, the actual episode, okay, this YouTube video is probably not that interesting. The behind the scenes of this YouTube video is probably super interesting. You know, when you watch a video and it was like, making this was probably more interesting than the finished product, because it's like some wacky stuff's going on here, because it's like, hold on. Like, how does it happen that, like, at the end of this video, right as the challenge ends, we get the clip animated of the challenge explanation? Because if you notice, yes, what ends up happening is that immediately after the elimination ceremony, we skip to the start of the challenge, which means that the clip is just out of order. And it's like, wait a minute. How did that happen again? Like, what happened? Did we paste the wrong clip in on Windows Movie Maker? What were we using? Like, I don't know. What is, how? I don't know. Like, this is something that completely has crossed my mind, has crossed the pathway of knowledge, right? Like, how would that have happened? But at the same time, you'll notice that it's also because the ending of the episode isn't done, because there's no voting screen. There's just a freaking text box saying vote for Mango, Muffin, Moonstone, or Cracker. And it's like, wait a minute, you didn't make a voting screen? It's not done yet? Like, what? You know, it's like, wait a minute, what? So, I mean, yeah, that is something. That is something. For sure, bro. But like, yeah. So, the main thing that happens in this episode, however, is that basically Cracker is upset because it's like, God damn it, I don't have arms. You know, that's lame. And then Muffin goes like, yo, I can give you arms because I just so happen to be secretly an incredibly smart and good and capable engineer who has made a duplicator of anything that you scan, and therefore I will be able to scan my own arms and attach them to your body, because that is how that works, and then you will be able to have arms now. Yes, that makes sense. I mean, look, that, especially the second part, like, that is kind of how object show logic works, though. Like, you notice, like, even modern day times, like in BFDI, BFDIA recently, right, when Pin, when we were like, yo, when, like, Pin didn't have any limbs, I was like, oh, I can give you some limbs, and then they gave it, like, with kitchen utensils, and then it just suddenly worked, right? Like, it's just kind of that type of logic, where it's like, to be fair, it's not supposed to make sense, right? It's not supposed to be like we're not out here freaking amputating, like, proper, right? So, like, in general, we, like, it's okay, right? But it's kind of fun to criticize it. So they're certainly eating. They can do handstand, which is pretty nice. And then we end up having ourselves. Oh yeah, there's the renovated intro song, which I mean, it might sound better. It's hard to say. It's being recorded. Like, the audio location is in downtown Las Vegas. Like, I don't know where it is. So we don't get a proper high quality pick of it. But yeah, so Chalky ends up actually being the eliminated contestant with 33 votes, which is yeah, I mean, it was a pretty evened out voting, which I definitely understand, as both of those were pretty solid. But yeah, Chalky eventually gets eliminated. Makes perfect sense. So yeah, that's all cool. We end up having the challenge, which it's a challenge. We end up having there's a couple of interesting ideas, though. I will say, again, taking a little bit more of a risk with camera angles, right? Having characters kind of be further away to understand what type of shot it's trying to do. Like, it tries to work itself creatively, right? By trying to have it's trying to do like, okay, how do I have action? Like, ooh, jump, boom, skip, right? Like, how do I do action? It's like, okay, if I put it really close to the character and I follow the character, then the camera's gonna have to move fast to keep up with the character, and then it gives the illusion that there's a lot of action going on, when instead if I kept the camera away, it would look lame. Like, you see, it's this type of like problem solving that it is trying to do, right? So, like, you see, again, it settles into what I said, I think in episode 2, where it's like, to be fair, I can see the potential, because this episode was, like, this show wasn't afraid to attempt a bit of problem solving from time to time, right? It wasn't afraid to try to go like, alright, I'm gonna do this thing that I don't really know how to do, and I'm gonna try to find a way to do it, right? Like, it was willing to learn, it was willing to try, it was willing to do a bunch of that stuff, and I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, but eventually we end up having the last part, which is a tightrope. A tightrope over feces, and then at the last part we end up having the Forest of Doom, which is, by the way, I never think this episode did quite well. It held the story together. I always say you should definitely do callbacks to previous things in your episodes. And this did that, with that Forest of Doom, and eventually with the last part, right, with the cube fella that was there previously, and then the gummy bear's repeated appearance, which I think is always fun, right, as kind of the character that's always there as next to the host, even though the hosts really like them, right. But eventually, the final challenge ends up getting done by Micro, who ends up winning for their team, which means that the team of Mango Muffin, Mango Stone, and Cracker are up for elimination. Wait, a minute. There are no teams. I mean, there can be teams, no, because it's just one person on one team. Surely there's not teams. But yeah, I mean, it's cool stuff. Hold on, okay, I'm curious how long it actually takes. Voting ends on December 18th. Then episode 8 releases on January 11th. So it's less than a month. Or, like, it's around a month. Okay, I mean, like, I see it. Okay, I get it. This show, it was some solid time. It was some solid production time. But alright, it's time for episode 8 of Excellent Entities, which is titled, How Could This Happen to Explosion? Alright, let's see how could this happen to Explosion. Alright, that is episode 8 of Excellent Entities. Now, how could this happen to me? Yes, I mean, in the same way that I was thought about it in the singing challenge, I'm telling you, bro, we're trying to find some excuses to sing. I mean, the amount of singing moments in this show, like, in this episode, is like, what, 4? It's not even just that song, which, of course, the meme is that it keeps playing over and over, but like, even other stuff, it just keeps on, it just plays, like, it doesn't stop, which is something, alright, like, it's interesting, we're really out here for the music. I do believe that at least THREEEE, I think, has some musical numbers in it, which, I mean, of course they do. This show's bound for a musical as soon as it gets good, as soon as it finds out how to produce music, it's having it. But yeah, so we have ourselves the classic recaps. One of the things that I enjoy about the recaps is that the recaps seem to not understand what's going on in the episode either. They seem to be kind of rushing through it as well. So like, I'm glad that like at least my explanation is not anywhere less clear than the actual explanation goes. Which is nice. So we end up having ourselves the elimination, where we get to discover, apparently according to Chocolate Bar, that Cracker is not liked. Therefore, what ends up happening, we end up having Cracker get a new look that is going to make them suddenly liked by everybody. And their new looks is they look like Ash Ketchup or something. I don't I mean, like, they just have hair and a cap, and one of their eyes is covered up, so that it proper style. This hat has a hilariously large, like, fit. I don't know what it's called. Like, cap, like, the cap, how, like, there's the front part that blows off of the side. Like, it's so big. It's like, it's 7 times bigger than the hat itself. I don't know why this is how that looks. But, okay then. So in the elimination, we end up having the eliminated contestant to be none other than Micro. Oh yeah, Micro gets eliminated, kind of at random, and then both Muffin and Moonstone end up being safe. So the voting doesn't even matter, right? Which is interesting, because I mean, what, you know. What did Micro even do? Micro was not there. So you're telling me that what Micro did was they were too, like, they were too hung up on the pressure because they were spectating, that they yeeted themselves into the bog. Okay, bro. Okay, Micro. I see what you're doing. You're doing something, all right. And then we end up having the challenge. Pick out a random task from a board. You have to do the task to be safe. If you do it, you're good. If you don't, you're not. The tasks end up being quite complicated. Manga has to rescue a fella called Ring Pop, who just so happens to be holding a lot of other things that they need to save. So they're doing that. Muffin needs to kill Gummy Bear. That's that challenge. Moonstone needs not to use Moonstone's powers for 1 hour. By the way, remember how they picked him out of a bowl? What the hell would happen if, like, Muffin was like, don't use your powers for 1 hour? What? You know, like, huh? How? Imagine literally anybody else got it other than Moonstone. But yeah, Moonstone cannot use their mind reading capabilities, or anything else. So they're like, I mean, pretty easy. And then for Cracker, the challenge is to catch a nail, because the freaking nail fella who got eliminated is running rampant. So yeah, that's what they're doing. Mario has to get through an obstacle course. Then Cracker ends up just kind of chasing Nail constantly. Then we end up having Muffin try to figure out what's going on with Gummy Bear, and then Gummy Bear was too busy trying to get rid of what are they trying to they keep trying to get rid of the how could this happen to me records, okay, because I don't something along those lines. But we were like, I mean, I don't even know what's going on here, but like, I mean, at the end of the day, I do like it as a gag. I will say, it's a relatively nice meta gag, you know, where it's like you can properly see that, hey, we had fun. We're like, oh, yo, for this episode I want to overuse it, and you know, it's non-serious enough of a show, right, to where like I 100% see that this would make sense, and it is funny, right? Like, it is funny. Like, this show, it has a bit of meta-ness to it. I don't know why. Like, I don't, like, because if you ask me why does this show work with a bit of meta humor, I cannot tell you. To be fully and honestly honest with you, I kind of understand tell you. But I can definitely tell you that, yeah, I do think that the show does work a bit with its meta humor aesthetic. It does that. It works. So it's cool. It's cool stuff. Then we end up having some fellas. Of course, there's the gag that the fella just runs really slow. The nail just runs really slow, but like it somehow never gets caught. Anyways, Moonstone desperately wants to use their powers, but they're too lazy to. Then we end up having Muffin go to the bog. Oh yeah, and the people in the bog escape. That's a big deal, right? The people in the bog escape. I'm telling you, bro. Somehow the people in the bog escape, and then not only the people in the bog escape, everybody escapes. Even the people over in the BTF, or it's called the BTS. No, that's even the people over in the other thing, the old thing, whatever it was called. Like, even those people managed to escape. It's like, wait a minute, how did you coerce with them how to escape, right? Because at least the thing about the gremlins, the gremlins are, well, theoretically there. We don't actually ever get to see the gremlins around. However, like, you know, the idea is that the gremlins would be theoretically there, but they're not. So, like, I don't really know what's going on here. Like, well, I mean, they should be there, basically. But, like, I don't, yeah, someone's up. So everybody managed to escape. Escaped. No more people in jail. Jail is banned. Okay, sure. Then we end up having, what the hell do we end up having? Oh yeah, Nelly. Okay, so Nelly ends up running away, getting chased by a freaking ash cracker, and then they proceed to Nelly proceeds to jump into the volcano and die, which means that they are dead. So you didn't catch a nail. The nail died before you could catch it. All right. Oh well, unfortunate. Which means that you have failed your mission and they are up for elimination. The second person to fail is none other than Muffin, because they eventually chase down Gummy Bear to the top of the "how could this happen to me" factory that was making "how could this happen to me" records to play in the show. Yes, that is the fully correct way to describe the sequence of events that happens in this episode, which is, I mean, it's fun, right? It's fun when it fully locks itself into a bit, right? Because it's like it gives it depth, you know, like the fact that it's such a weird situation, but like at the end of it doesn't feel that weird of a situation. At the end of the day, it's solid, right? Like it finds that part of the writing process pretty well, right? Like it screws, like I think that, how do I say this? This show screws up a lot of the like nitty gritty of writing, right? Like, oh, we forgot about this detail. Oh, this went at the wrong time. Oh, this got kind of forgotten, right? Like, it's a show that, I'm not gonna lie, the writing of this show does feel like it has memory problems, you know? Like, for some reason, the first thing that happens when, for example, the new look gets given here to Cracker is that Moonstone immediately has hard eyes and goes like, oh, right? So you think, okay, is this a super charming look that everybody's gonna be into? But like, no, not really. Not really. That's just not a detail that gets brought up ever again, right? So those are like the nitty gritty. It kind of forgets about the details. But I think the far away parts of it, right? Like the actual elements of how a challenge is, what is a challenge, how they end up doing it. It's pretty alright, you know? Like if there's something I want to say is that the challenges in the show have been very alright, you know? Even if it's not a great challenge, it gets written relatively okay. And like the challenges, they end up at least having their own vibe of uniqueness, right? Like they're unique in a way, right? That a lot of stuff aren't. So I would say that yeah, it did a pretty good job for being like for being 12 years ago, right? Like it does pretty solidly, you know. It does its job. And I absolutely commend it for it. But eventually Muffin yes fails because they're going to murder Gummy Bear. However, Gummy Bear decides to explode before they can do that, so they self-destruct, which means that Gummy didn't kill them. I mean, technically they did because, okay, I would say that counts, in my opinion, because yes, okay, Gummy Bear did die themselves. However, that was it was assisted, right? Like if that fella wasn't there with the harassment, would Gummy Bear have self-destructed there? No. So I do believe that I think enough credit would go to where I would say Muffin's safe. Okay, it's a bit of technicality. Come on now. But yeah, and then what the hell is Chalky doing? I don't exactly remember. I'm going to be 100% honest. Chalky was doing something. They ended up going into a landscape with like a million rabbits or something. And they eventually pressed the button. Chalky. Wait, what was Chalky doing? Oh, yeah, they were just trying to escape. Wait, what? I don't know. Some things are interesting. We got another appearance of the fish tank. Right there. So then, yeah, the next person to fail is Moonstone because we end up having somebody else appear, as Daniel Cliff, who happens to be a superstar Cliff thing. I will riot if we don't see a Cliff in a modern episode and be like, oh my god, it's Daniel Cliff. This has to be brought up, I'm telling you. But then Moonstone just can't resist it. Has to use her mind-reading powers to read the mind, and it turns out that Cliff does not like her, thinks that she's fat. So Moonstone has not only failed, but also been heartbroken. And then at the last moment, Mango ends up winning by default because nobody else won. But Mango does, by the way, also fail the challenge. They end up only getting Ring Pop and the ice cream, and not any of the animals that they were supposed to get. So I mean, it's just. Everybody failed. Okay, to be 100% honest, everybody failed, but one character failed after the other ones failed. So that's why, if you're gonna fail, fail last. Ooh, new inspirational tip? Dude, that's like an inspirational quote. Be the last to fail. Right? Like, because that means that you've tried the most. Is that, whoa, new sign me up, Facebook. Facebook people. Alright, hear me out on this one. Okay, I want 50% of the revenue. Okay, I'm getting distracted, but hey, this show is kind of due for that. This show is distracted itself. Time for episode 9. It is titled Children of the Horn. Let's go. Alright, that is episode 9 of Excellent Entities. So, we have ourselves what is very much so possibly the least threatening villain in the history of media. Yeah. And it was something. So yeah, I mean, we're still doing, by the way, the previously on for this show. I wonder. I mean, at this point, we'll presumably just do it for the entire season, which I think is interesting. How like that was a thing that we felt was a consistent need, because like I mean I don't know, like whatever should no, because like at the end of the day, it's a thing that's kind of unique to it, because I mean the thing is I just don't know the other shows from the time. Because, like, I mean, I know that BFDI didn't really do that. I didn't really do that. Object Overload didn't really do that. It's like, what did? Right? That's kind of like, what did? I don't think Lockdown did that. Like, because I'm trying to figure out, like, what show would have done this? So, like, this felt like a necessity. Which, I mean, it's useful, I guess, considering it's relatively mini. I just find it interesting how, like, it was a constant thing. It's also called Last Occurrence, which is just the fanciest possible word for the situation. But, yeah, I mean, that's it. Yeah, it's interesting. But, yes, we end up having ourselves the elimination take place after we end up having the funeral for Micro, because nobody cared about Micro. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out who the hell... Oh, okay, so let me try to figure out, because the recast said exactly what happened, but I didn't 100% understand it. Hold on. Yeah, so Muffin and Softball's mind... Wait a minute. So Muffin swapped with Softball, however Softball died and Muffin survived, meaning that we are left with Softball as Muffin. And then Micro also died, right? That's happening. Okay, but hold on. But was this somebody else's mind also swapped? Like, I swear it wasn't just them. I swear, like Mango. Wait, was Mango's mind not swapped? No, Mango's mind wasn't swapped. Mango was just dumb. Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. But yes, apparently Mango has no friends. Cracker has no friends on Facebook, which is bad. On Object Book, that's bad. So they're gonna try to take some selfies to see if they can, get some friendos. So they have a selfie of them playing football, have a selfie of them with Justin Bieber. Remember back when Justin Bieber, and it was 2012, and Justin Bieber was like a teenager. Yeah. That time, but it didn't really help out, dude. Again, like, I'm sorry. Insta-Lane and Object Book. Instagram's still popular. Remember, dude, the era of Facebook is crazy. The era of Facebook, that was something different. All right. I like kind of remember. I remember like the tail end of Facebook era. Okay. But yeah, I mean, like Facebook still. I'm not saying that Facebook's gone. Like, Facebook still exists, but who uses Facebook? I'm sorry, in the nicest way possible. How would you even use Facebook? Like, because like Facebook was kind of one of those things where like it was such a social thing. Why am I talking about Facebook? I don't know. Dude, like Facebook was one of those such a social thing where it's like, unless everybody you know is on Facebook, why use Facebook? Which is interesting, right? Because it's like it's kind of weird, because Facebook feels like one of those things that can only really get adopted if other people are already using it. However, how did it grow to this many people using it? I don't know. It was really interesting. But anyways, whatever. I'm done talking about fucking Facebook. Dude, I'm going off on some tangents, okay? But yes, we end up having the elimination time, where we end up having the eliminated contestant be none other than Moonstone, who does indeed get eliminated with 49 votes. First of all, by the way, I'd just like to point out, because it's the most prevalent at the elimination time, that yes, the audio is still fucked. Like, it's still doing the whole spatial audio, which, like, for a moment, I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, all right, I see it. You know, it's doing a thing. Maybe it's like interesting and a cool idea to have audio that's spaced out, but it's just not. Like, it's just annoying at the end of the day, right? Because it's like okay, I understand if you're physically there, but I'm not. Yeah, it's just I'm not physically there. I don't need to know where the camera is in perspective to the character, right? Like, it doesn't matter to me. So it ends up that it's kind of like, yeah, no, it's not good. It's not. But yeah. Moonstone ends up getting eliminated. I mean, absolutely makes sense. That it's kind of just an unfortunate rhetoric of the challenge, right? Where, like, the challenge is to do nothing, so that means that Moonstone already doesn't get my screen time. Well, first of all, Moonstone was already one of the least liked contestants, right? Just to kind of in general, right? Because they were kind of new, they didn't do much, they're kind of mysterious, they weren't iconic, they never had many lines going on, right? So that they didn't have too much going on with them. However, at the same time, they were also, you know, kind of, they had a super easy challenge, just don't do anything, and then they proceed to do something, right? Which is directly going up against the person's challenge, right? When a challenge is something easy and you still see somebody absolutely throwing it, then, like, it usually gets considered a little bit harsher by the people, right? Because it's like one of those things where you know, didn't do very well. So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Moonstone was the most logical elimination there. So bye bye. And then we end up having ourselves a V challenge, which gets, well, not really postponed. Do we even have a challenge? We kind of have a challenge. We have the fella come in with we end up having a note with a Unicorn Horn's plan to take over the show, and then Unicorn Horn sees that they found a plan and decides it's time to execute. All right, so the fella arrives here and it's like, all right, I'm gonna destroy you, yeah. And then we end up having some fellas. However, Unicorn Horn gets, you know, very much so distracted. You know, that type of villain. You know those cartoon villains that say, I'm gonna take over the world, and it's like, wait, who are you again? And then they get, like, annoyed. Like, they get annoyed. They have this need to answer every question. So, like, you can defeat them by just asking questions, because they're just gonna get distracted because they feel the need to answer it. Yeah, that's Unicorn Horn in a nutshell. All right. That's the best possible way I could describe it. Like, it's just, bro, what is going on? But yeah, we end up having the fella do the challenge, which ends up being hide and seek before you get hunt down, and it's technically not a challenge. It's, you know, technically just a guy that wants to murder everybody, but like he treats it like a challenge. So I mean, sure, Mango decides to try to hide in heaven. So yeah, Micro tries to say something about the finale, because does going to heaven give you time travel power? Why would it do that? I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, like, if you die, you just get the time travel? Like, what? Oh, yo. I mean, like, who said the ghost had to be from 50 years ago? The ghost could be today. But I wait the guy because they keep getting hit by a car and dying and re-dying. But yeah, this is not great. But eventually, Muffin ends up finding at the last second a genie. And in this scene, by the way, this scene is so expressive. You can really see it. That like how bouncy the characters are. This is like a thing that was mildly like Vista. I don't know who animated that part specifically, okay? However, this was like a thing that was kind of going on around the time. It kind of became a little bit synonymous with other object shows. I can't remember at the time when it was like, okay, it gave me that vibe. of like, yo, they super bouncy express animations that were like exaggerated, right? Because at the end of the day, like BFDI always kept it pretty darn simple, right? So I was like, how do we up the ante on BFDI? And I was like, oh, let's make it super bouncy and expressive and like make the characters act out the sentences for no reason, right? Like that was kind of that was kind of the thing that was going on. And there was like that misunderstanding there that is like, yo, I mean, like, I don't know if you ever tried speaking before, but you don't necessarily just have to constantly jump around and do backflips whenever you are speaking, right? You just gotta kind of do your thing. You know, you gotta talk when you're having a conversation. You gotta have the conversation, right? Like you're supposed to leave bouncing around for moments. However, when every conversation was entirely just bouncing around, it wasn't good. You know, because it just caused those additional problems with it. So yeah, that's why it wasn't good, and I'm glad that, you know, we've sort of developed out of that era, but this was definitely something that was synonymous with a bunch of shows from the time, just kind of that general animation style. And I'm curious to see if the show's going to lean more into it or less into it, because this might be some animators, because there are more animators here than there were animators there. But yeah, either way, we proceed onto the challenge. Where the following things that happen is, yeah, in general, like, this fella just starts kind of finding stuff. Oh yeah, they put Mango in a jail, which, are those bars too big? They're surely, right? Surely you can squeeze by those bars. I mean, I guess it's a manga. I guess it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of complicated when it's a manga, right? Because, like, a manga can't exactly squeeze really that much, and it's very hard item. So maybe not. Maybe actually no. Maybe manga can't actually technically make it past these bars, but, you know, it goes how it goes. And then at the end of it, for some reason, the cracker eats a blueberry, and that's bad now. Why is that bad? I don't remember. Wait, who's complaining? I don't know. I don't know. Is it a muffin? Oh, you're a blueberry muffin. Oh, wait. Is that what you are? Wait a minute. Oh, you're a blueberry muffin. Okay. Yes. Okay, never mind. Never mind. I clocked it. Okay. It should not be. I should not be proud of clocking that. It is actually extremely easy to clock, and I should have known beforehand. But if we pretend that was smart, then let's say that was smart. But yes, now the unicorn horn eventually ends up having the idea that I'm going to press this button, and this button is going to murder both Mango and Muffin, okay? So then we end up having Mango absolutely rage bait the hell out of this fella, being like, okay, this is non-threatening guy. If I rage bait him, surely he'll just get too mad at me and start fucking making dumb decisions and get distracted or whatever, right? And not press the button because he's too busy arguing, which does actually end up being a successful strategy. Yes, he ends up dipping off after, like, he gets hit, by a cracker's attack of an apple. However, unfortunately, this a shield guy, a policeman, appears and presses the button anyways, and then they both die. Look, Mango apologizes immediately after, being like, yo, my bad, my plan didn't work. I mean, it did, though. Your plan did not, your plan ended at the guy leaving. You succeeded at that moment. If the police officer had and presses the button, that was not part of the plan. Mango, you need to be nice to yourself. But yeah, we end up having the final wish be Cracker to be up for elimination, as they used it on the genie lamp, which means that those fellas, that everybody's up for elimination, right? No, Muffin presumably wouldn't be up for elimination then, but I guess, I don't know, we'll have to see. In due time, we have a final gag about hashtags, and that's episode 9. Alright, good stuff. Is it time for episode 10? I believe it is time for episode 10. I must admit that this is the coolest thumbnail. Yeah, absolutely. By far, in this series, the coolest thumbnail is that one. So many stars. Reunion of the decade. Here we go. Okay, so that is episode 10 of Excellent Entities, which I watched actually quite a while ago. I had to get some stuff going after watching it, but, this is a pretty interesting episode because it deals with the thing that a lot of object shows for the time and the history of time have always really struggled with, right? how do you do the episode before the finale, right? That's a famous problem that shows have always struggled to deal with, because you want to have, at the end of the day, you know, something along the lines of like a vote to win or anything. Just kind of, you know, that episode before the finale, after the elimination, that gets us into the final two. Right? Like, that's something that happens. And this show also, you know, is suffering from it. Even though, interestingly enough, I don't know if this show, does this even have voting? Because, like, this episode, you know, I don't know if this has voting. Does it? But, like, either way, we need to, at the very minimum, do the elimination, where the eliminated contestant, I believe, for being bad, ends up just being decidedly chosen to be Cracker, which, I mean, okay, I guess you can do that. I mean, it's kind of weird. But, we end up having kind of, like, this situation. But, yeah, so one of the tactics, basically, either way, look, whether there's voting or not voting, this is still that filler episode before the finale. It just is this is just what it is, right? So as it goes with this, it starts to struggle because it kind of it does this interview format. Okay, what it does, this interview format, it gives in these characters, and this is a tactic that a bunch of shows have done, right? It's like, oh, let's talk to all of the previous contestants, you know, about how they're feeling, right? And so that way we can have more padded runtime, right? Okay, yeah, however, you gotta remember that at the end of the day, it's padded runtime, right? So, like, it does definitely, in an overall situation, like, when I'm watching the show, right, from beginning to end, this episode does definitely act as quite a bit of a turn of, like, a pace slower, right, of, like, a pace downer, because it's just kind of, well, because so little gets done during it that actually impacts much of the story, right? Like, it's just kind of, they're just talking, and they do a bunch of gags, and the gags are fine. I mean, they're not amazing, like, it's excellent entities, right? Like, it's a show that's 12 years old. However, in general, I mean, like, it's I mean, everything that happens in this episode is alright, right? But, like, I think that you can absolutely, you know, try to take some pointers from this episode for the future, right? Because I do see, like, even nowadays, like, absolutely, majority of shows I see do definitely struggle with the idea, how do you make the episode before the finale? Because at least with the finale, you can, you know, build up the suspense and everything, right? But the episode before the finale, what are you even supposed to do? Unless you're a show with a lot of lore, you can weave in lore around it. It's always a little bit complicated. So, yeah, I fully understand, and this episode is an interesting example of a way to do just that, right? However, does it succeed at its job? I mean, debatable. Like, again, it's all right for the time. It's absolutely okay. You know, we get to see every character properly act themselves out again, and which I believe in this case especially is also okay, especially when you consider that the show has had a bump up in quality since the start, when, you know, a bunch of these people were eliminated. So we actually get to see the characters speak with their renewed assets properly, and not in, like, passing fashion, right? Like how it was when they escaped. But yeah, we end up having sort of an interview situation, or, well, a reunion. You know, we have the reunion episode. So the Broomer ends up apparently nearly got eaten by Broomer. We get to find out as the epic lore, apparently. And then we end up finding out that yes, the gremlins. How do we survive from the gremlins? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And even chocolate bars are like, how did you survive? And it's like, we don't know. It is impossible. This is not knowledge that anybody has, but we just know that they survived. One thing that I didn't understand, one thing that I didn't know was actually that the fellas from the MCP got sent over to the bog, or the BOG, which I didn't know. I thought they were just staying in two separate boxes, but I guess they got flung out to the other box, which is weird. Cause, I mean, that was never mentioned. I guess that was just presumed, even though, I mean, I don't know. We end up having, the fella be mad. The English muffin, of course. We end up having Click. You know what annoys me about Clicks? You know what annoys me about Click specifically? Click's asset is it could be symmetrical. It really could. You know, I mean, it's perfectly made for that purpose. It's just not. We just didn't feel like it. the three dots at the top are definitely all smaller than the three dots at the bottom, and there's no reason why. Like it's just supposed to be like that, all right? Which is unfortunate. So yeah, what was it? Oh yeah, they want to make it farther. Then they had apparently heart problems. They were bullied. They were fatty building man. And they were apparently from Crackers High School, I think. No, Crackers Elementary School. And then apparently we end up having Chalky. Like, you can tell, even when a character sat down and is supposed to be chummy, look at how much expressing Chalky's doing in that scene. It's like, you know? Like, I mean, we've not really leaned into that ultra over-expression. However, I will say that, like, you can still see the elements of it with just how much certain limbs tend to move, you know. But apparently Broomer has a 50% stake in the show. And then apparently Micro's still dead because you can't revive them for some reason. And then we end up having Moonstone remember that, you know, they know the secret that cannot be aired on television about Chocolate Bar. And they will, you know, as soon as Chocolate Bar starts dissing them, Moonstone goes like, no, I'm going to tell you a secret. And it's like, yeah, okay, very good blackmailing powers. Hell yeah. Shout out to blackmailing. Try it today. No, don't. For legal reasons, that's a joke. And then we end up having Cracker's in the kindergarten class. We end up having the teddy bear show up a couple of times. Every single time the teddy bear shows up at this point, why does this happen to me? Play. And it's like, okay. I got the joke. So the mango, yes, they make an ad for Chippers, and they end up having the Muffin, who still doesn't know what show they're on because they're softball, right? And they end up asking, "Yo, am I in the audition for an Anime Insanity or for a Mono show?" Which is interesting. I actually do really like the gag of them practicing for Object Chaos, and then they're doing the no VA thing because that's how Object Chaos does it. That's fun. That's fun. Now we'll have to say that, you know, at the end of the day, you'll notice that II does canonically have an audition process, but it's quite similar to how the interview is conducted. This was not a thing that was even remotely known at the time, but it does turn out to be true, which I think is fun. I mean, of course, they're based on characters that were created by Mifo, so they don't recount, but, like, it's still fun. But yeah, they get upset because they call the show bad, which is like, oh, can't call the show bad. And they end up blowing up the reunion, and then the episode ends. That's about it. There's really not that much to this one, you know. It's just kind of made for gags. I do think that some of the gags are solid, some of the gags weren't as solid, but it does help characterize the characters. Sure. Especially because it's been a while since we saw them, and now we're going to be heading, you know, into the finales, right, of the episode, which, yeah, I mean, I have no idea. Was there a voting for the winner? I don't think there was ever a stated moment to where they were doing the voting for the winners, so I don't know, especially considering the finale is as long as it is, right, because that's the thing about it. Like, the finale is a two-parter, but it's a two-parter that evens itself out a half hour. So, like, how's that a thing? How does that happen? I don't know, but we're just gonna need to, how do I say this? We're gonna need to find out. I know, right? We're gonna need to find out. Before that, let me quickly figure this out. Hold on, when did this release? So, this released on May 3rd, 2014. So this show was already happening for a bit, because, you know, that's like 11 years. I mean, that is 12 years ago, but, you know, it's January, so it's not quite, we've not hit the 12 yet. But then, and then the show started around March 2015, May 2014. So we released 10 episodes in about a year, 3 months. So that's what, a month and a half per episode? Like a month and a quarter, right? Roughly per episode. Which, hey, that's some solid speed. I will say. For, you know, the episodes, I mean, some of them were rushed, as we heard. Some of them bugged. Some of them weren't perfect. But, hey, again, made by, like, a 13-year-old. that's some good commitment. So, I think that was solid stuff there. All right. With that, we can now head into episode 11, part 1. My bad. It is titled The Slow and The Curious. Okay, then. Let's find out. Go. Okay, that is part 1 of episode 11 of Excellent Entities. So, in this episode, we have, quite a few things happening. First of all, I'd just like to point this out because I keep forgetting about it. You know what I found really interesting is that, it credits Incompetech for the music, by the way, because that's like the music library that was used. You know what I find interesting is that, like, when it's credited in this episode, it makes sense. But I was always confused when I saw the first batch of episodes and it credited Incompetech for music at the title cards of the episode back when those were on the episodes. And I was like, hold on a minute, like, because I forgot to point it out and I realized after, and it's like, well, too late. But it's like, hold on, like, how is it that the show, when it wasn't having music, was crediting music? Like, what? Like, now it has music. Now it has quite a bit of music, and it's doing stuff. However, like, it's like, bro. Anyway, it's time for the finale. The finale starts off proper like a movie where we get to find out where we start off at the end. However, we actually end up having a little moment being like, let's go back to the beginning. It's, like that type of hook stuff. Where, we have the initial situation where we end up having, of course, some gags, the free candy van and everything. We have to find out that Moonstone might have a brother called Marstone. Don't think they do, though. Because Muffin immediately calls them out on it. But hey, I'm sure Marstone is going to become real any day now. I think Marstone is probably a real character. So like, come on, they're going to become a real character. But yeah, we end up having some people talk Muffin, which, like, it's so goofy to be Muffin in this situation. Like, we haven't really discussed this enough. Like, okay, imagine this. You're a guy. Okay. No, it's like, okay, imagine this. Okay? Imagine you're just a guy. You're just chilling out, alright? You're just chilling out, having a day. And then you randomly go over and accidentally walk by some people that are doing some teleporting switching machine. Okay? And then what happens is that you swap bodies with a different person, and then you get launched off somewhere, and it turns out that actually, oops, you are part of the top 4 of Survivor. Oh no, I guess you must keep going as the person. Like, it's such a weird situation, right? Like, it is absolute, like, is it interesting? Yes. It is an interesting situation, right? Like, it does allow for interesting thinking, right? Like, what will you do? Because at the end of the day, you have just infiltrated a situation you're not aware of. So you shouldn't even have Muffin's personality, which means that, like, you could do some very interesting things with this possibility. Which it's very intriguing. This show doesn't take nearly as much advantage of the fact that Muffin is not Muffin anymore than it should. Like, it throws out, of course, like, relatively consistent one-liners about it, but it doesn't ever make, like, a arc with it, which is unfortunate because it absolutely should. And if this were to get, I don't know, a reboot or whatever, right, a reimagining, I would absolutely lock in so much more on that angle because it's a really interesting angle. I'm not gonna lie. But, like, yeah, that's like a thing that ends up happening, yeah, because they end up being like, I don't know you, British Muffin, but you seem kind of dumb. Backgrounds in general have a little bit of an improvement. Animation has also, I would say, definitely relaxed itself, like, a little bit. Backgrounds, I see these mountains over here. Like, I do think that, yeah, there's been a bit of the overall... I would say this episode does have a bit of a quality bump from the other ones as well, which is nice, bringing it a little bit more all out for the finale. And you'll notice that what this finale does, okay, is it does the kind of thing that you'll notice a lot of finales try to do, which is like just kind of go, all right, let's jam pack this bullshit with references, right? That's just pretty much what it does. Like, it just tries to jam pack everything with references. Now, how? Because, like, having a finale that, like, it refs everything that has happened before is cool, right? That refs a lot of things that happened before and a lot of things from the culture, right? Is cool because you get to look at that, like, oh, that thing. And then it makes it feel like a really complete episode and a really complete experience, right? For having watched the series at all. Like, at the end of the day, one of the most cheesy things that object shows do is, of course, having the final challenge be a compilation of all of the previous challenges. Yes, that is an extremely cheesy object show thing to do. However, that idea was pioneered by BFDI for a very good reason, because it's an amazing challenge idea at the end of the day, right? Like, it's a great idea. You get to relive every moment. You get to bring back the jokes, and the viewers get to relive every moment alongside you. You get to it's a competitive it's a race, so you objectively know who's ahead and who's not ahead. You get to crown, hopefully, the winner, the person who's just better, because it's going to be, again, a compilation of previous challenges, so it's going to encourage the person with more physicality to win. Like, there's less luck involved, and in general, there's kind of just, like, it's just solid. It's just good stuff. You know, like, it's that's absolutely one of the good challenges, and this, you see that how, like, it tries to do that by popping in a thing over there about some shows, but also having its own challenge, which however is interesting. However, it starts over, right here, when it starts mentioning, when it starts, like, you can also notice that it's a finale, because it takes itself more, like, it gives itself more writing time. Like, I'm gonna be 100% honest, I would not believe that this episode would have a 1 minute long SpongeBob skit in it if it was not the finale and we, quote unquote, had the time for it, right? Because in finales you always feel like we have time for things a bit more, so we kind of take a more complete skit at it, right? Which is something, right? So yeah, we end up having ourselves the challenge starts. So what is the challenge? Challenge, in the middle there is a bank. Okay, there is an island with a bank in it. Okay, all right, and then on the left side there is a forest with towers on it, and on the right side there's just a desert. Okay, on one of those towers there is a code that you can use to unlock a safe. And then on the other side, in a oasis, there's also a code that you can use to unlock a safe. You got it? Alright. So one person will get assigned at random to each zone. And then they have to go do that, to go back to the race, and then the winner wins. Right? That is, I believe, the theoretical idea of the challenge. It doesn't play out like that. However, it's kind of interesting, right? Because you do need to also, at the end of the day, work your way towards the thing, while also at the same time getting resources, because you have to, make a boat so that you can get to the island, right? Like, at the end, it's a pretty involved challenge, although I will say that, of course, theoretically, by just the amount of resources, the forest should be the easier part, right? Because in the desert you have less to rely on. In the forest you have more trees, so you can make both. You have towers are gonna be a bit more clearly visible than an oasis, because they're super tall, right? So they literally just have more view of your eye, right? So, like, it is absolutely easier. But in general, yeah, that's like a thing. We end up having Muffin drop down to the desert, and then the Mango drops down to the forest. They end up trying to break down the trees to make the boats. They end up kind of both falling like Omega apart. And then eventually, they both go over. And then yet again, you get to see so many references. You get to see references to... Oh, no. How about, like, every time there's a reference, I'm gonna say it, okay? As I skim through this episode. Okay, so here there's the Dora... There's the Dora references with the map, and then the fella making it the underwear joke, haha, okay, yeah, alright, I see it. So then they're doing that, and they're continuing on the Dora gag. I like how even when the map dips, we continue on the Dora gag. Like, what? But then it's like, okay, not only that, we then have, the gummy bear attacks, okay, yeah. Then we end up having both of the contestants actually managed to get by the riddle fella by just freaking out confusing them by making no sense. So with the riddle guy, we'll just go like, no. And then they just end up rage baiting him. And then the other fella is in the like, no, give me a riddle, because they don't have a riddle. So then they both end up just getting past by just kind of confusing the fella that was protecting the bridge. So, Yeah, good job to the both. And they do the same gag with both characters, by the way. Of a character clearly and very obviously says a thing, and then immediately after be like, "Oh, you mean like this? Why didn't you just say it?" And when it's like they literally did. Did both characters need to do this joke? Like, I understand Mango because jokes that Mango's dumb, but was Muffin's not like? Come on, softball's not that dumb. Like, you can, come on, don't make him extremely stupid. Like, even multiple people said that Muffin's the only normal thinking one there. But either way, yes, we end up having the other fella die. Then we end up having the gummy bear dies. Then pressing the end of the world button. That's what Mango does. Then we end up having a fella roll down, a bunch of like fedoras. Oh yeah, the fedoras, right? The fedoras. Because our fedora's cool. Or something. If fedoras are cool, the world explodes or something. I don't know. I don't even remember. But we end up having an airplane come in, and the airplane fucking crashes into the thing. What? I'm sorry. You made the airplane crash into the tower. What are you doing? Yo, this is edgy. You can't do that. That's just not allowed. I don't know if that was I'm sorry, that can't be an accident. I refuse to believe it. There is literally zero way that is an accident. There's no way. I'm sorry, there's just no way, right? Like, that's just not. I know. WebzForevz. I know what 13-year-old you was doing. I'm not gonna say it, but you know. Everybody knows. Okay? When you're not tough. Nah, okay, you kind of tough, but we can have the crash, and then we end up having immediately after the wrecking ball. I came like a wrecking ball. There's somebody on the wrecking ball. Who the hell's on the wrecking ball? Like Mr. Fedora Hat Ball Man is on the wrecking ball. So there's that joke. Then of course there's the bit of the tower. We end up having a couple of those kind of like a part of the exaggerated expressions is also, by the way, exaggerated. How to say this? Exaggerated faces, like there's kind of more like different faces that aren't like all black. They have kind of the open eye, like that's what you can tell. They're kind of like I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Those rage comics, those rage comic faces. Yeah, it's kind of like those. So that is one part. Like you can tell if it has one of those faces, it's probably part of that situation. Rapunzel gets mentioned. Okay, yes. Then they do that. Then we end up having the gummy bear. So we end up singing a bunch of songs. So yeah, we end up singing "What's Happening to Me." Then we end up singing "I Ain't No Holla Back Girl." "Want You Like a Wrecking Ball." Let me get it. The dipping. Then we have the jet ski joke from earlier, from a couple of episodes ago, and then we end up having the code. Of course, the gag that is spelled really badly, but Mango says it's spelled really good. And then we end up having the fruitcake joke that I remember was said a couple episodes ago. Then we end up having they find the water. They end up having the code. What the hell is the code, by the way? Gummy bear plus British equals girl wearing a skirt as a shirt. What? A British gummy bear, like a British gummy bear equals girl wear. So just like a girl wearing a crop top. What? It's like, what is this? I mean, okay, I'm sure. But British, I don't know, but they end up having the song that they didn't download that also gets re-mentioned. Like there's a lot of re-mention. BFTA running animation that they re-mentioned, and then eventually the episode cuts itself off with the purple gummy bear being like, "This is not the finale I wanted. We're gonna do the finale my way," because either way, they're about to tie anyways in terms of results. But yeah, that is part one of the finale. I mean, it's interesting. It tries a lot. It tries to do a lot of references while still keeping a challenge that's original. However, it doesn't, it kind of fails, however, on that part of the finale where it's like, you really, in a finale especially, if you're doing a finale challenge, you really, more than ever, want to follow progress, right? Like, you want to follow, this person, because you're rooting for him in the finale, especially you're rooting for somebody. So it's like when you're going, oh, I'm going for this, I want this person to win, oh, I want this person to win, then you're following their journey, so you really want to know who's ahead. Like, oh, you gotta come back, oh, you gotta win for. That's why race is really good, like I previously said. But this, while it is a race, it's not a race that's properly made, because there's not a different amount of progress made. Because even though it's a race, but you'll notice that what this show's writing does, it just writes a scene for manga, where they progress, writes a scene for Muffin, where they progress, right, and then it just keeps going, which is usually how you would write a show. However, it doesn't give away enough progress, because it just so happens that there's the scene where Mango finds a thing, and then immediately after we go to the scene where Muffin finds a thing. However, that means that they both arrive at the same time, and they're there at the same time, which means that overall it's first of all pretty pointless, but like overall it's kind of unfortunate. Okay, episode 11 part 2, where Rio, the finale, the proper last episode of Excellent Entities, is titled We Ran Out of Puns. Okay, let's go. Alright, that is part 2 of episode 11 of Excellent Entities. It is past midnight, so it's going to be presumably a little bit more of a chilled out discussion. And this is just funny, in a way where, like, you can, again, hindsight really helps. However, like, I feel like you can kind of tell why this did well, okay? Because at the end of the day, like, what this is it wasn't a show that played it safe, right? Like, this wasn't a show that was just like, I'm gonna be the next object show master show, right? Whereas, like, I'm gonna be serious and have a serious finale and everything is gonna be serious, right? And, like, it allowed itself to play around with meta gags quite a bit. It allowed itself to, play off whatever was relevant at the time. It allowed itself to play with what was relevant at the time, which gets it, first of all, the support of people from the time, right? Because this is something that I believe is true at any time period. It's that if you manage to make a good object show and culturally weave in things from the present moment into it, people like it. People tend to really like it. I mean, like, you'll notice, I believe that like, nowadays, for example, I believe the best example of this is something like Object Invasion, right? Like, I don't know if you've seen Object Invasion, however, Object Invasion really likes to play to the culture, they like to play with something, and like, and it gets really praised for it, like the dunking meme in the latest episode with WoW and everything, right? Like, it really gets praised for it, and I believe this applies to any time. Like, viewers actually do really like, object viewers really like when culturally things get mentioned in the show. The only thing that obviously, of course, damages it is that we're beyond that, right? Like, we're definitively beyond that era where the gummy bear's there because of the gummy bear song, right? And how could this happen to me was a thing that everybody was using on YouTube, right? And then the Wrecking Ball and whatever other popular songs were in around that time, around that year, right? Like, all that stuff was missing because there just wasn't exactly that same there's not quite as much understanding. Like, I can't, of course, set myself perfectly in that time period, by just being somebody who knows about the internet and how internet culture was. I do know about these references, so I think that it is relatively understandable. However, I would definitely be worried for, like, for example, if a 12-year-old were to watch this right now, they would necessarily probably not understand a lot of the references being made, and therefore this show does significantly suffer from it. So, like, this is kind of, for example, this is what I'm worried, when I was chatting about Object Invasion, this is what I'm a little bit worried Object Invasion could be, right? Because, like, by the time that Object Invasion is this old, how would the new fans think about Object Invasion and some of the scenes in it? I don't know. I still believe that it manages to survive. and this, I think, as well manages to survive despite that. However, like it does manage to it does that is an important detail, and I think that's an important detail for anybody that wants to make an audio show, right? Is that like should you try to make cultural references relating to the time? It really depends. It really depends how humorous, how memey your show is, but like it's absolutely an interesting detail. But I think that this does well, first of all, because of that. And then the second reason why I think that this show managed to prosper, despite, of course, its situation, is that at the end of the day, it wasn't afraid to do meta gags, and it had an attitude. You know, like, this was a show with an attitude at the end of the day, right? It was a show that was like, yeah, I'm gonna make my finale make no sense. That's okay. Who the fuck cares? And it's like, at the end of the day, yeah, that's true. If it's funny that the rules are being broken, yeah, so be it. Like, it's not that big a deal, right? Like, and that's kind of what it does. So like it plays on interesting details that if it was trying to be super serious finale, it wouldn't play on. However, it ends up doing some interesting things, even to the endings, by the way, that I'm not gonna be shown in this video because I only have like the main episode 11 playing. However, like even from the endings and the way that they're written and everything, like it's all just made, like it's all in an attitude, of like boldness. Like, yes, this was, at the end of the day, this was a 14-year-old that wanted to make a thing and was not afraid and didn't take a save. Did not take a save. Just went in, was like, this is what I want to write. This is what I'm gonna write. This is what I think people will like, and people responded to a show that was just doing a thing. That was not necessarily taking a save, doing it a little bit different, doing a finale that's different than other finales, and then just going for it. And I think it wins. It absolutely wins. Playing out like that. But like, yeah, so absolutely. I'm not sure how much time there was between this and the start of the season 2, but that is actually quite interesting. We're gonna need to see, because what I've decided to do is I'm gonna do the season 2 in another video. At the start, I said that I was gonna cover the entire thing. No, because I calculated it, and it's like, no, that would be a 7-hour video or something. Like, that would be a stupidly long video. So I'm just like, okay, no, let's not do that. But yeah, we end up having the start, by the way. So we actually start off here, yet again, another relatively interesting moment, because we start off answering a relatively interesting question. It's like, okay, so we cut off from part 1 to part 2. So what if that is just like there was a literal cut? Everybody went to bed, came back, and we started refilming from there. And it's like, that does make a funny situation, right? Where like when you cut off at a cliffhanger, and then it's like, okay, everybody go home, and then have to come back for the next episode filming, right? Because they are doing reality TV at the end of the day. They throw in the jab of reality TV, being like, yo, is it scripted or is it reality TV? And then it says it's reality TV, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's scripted. Okay, yeah, I see. You see, it did these gags. It wasn't afraid to dish out. It also wasn't afraid to dish out a little bit. Like, it does stuff, this thing. This show, it certainly does things. So that's like pretty cool. Then, what do we end up having? Yeah, in a manga, you don't know my story. You literally do, though. You can read your mind. You go watch the Super Bowl, and then we have a literal advertisement about the Super Bowl. Like, yes, okay, cool. In the same way that we had a random SpongeBob tangent. Again, in a finale, it just feels like it takes itself the time to have a finale. It takes itself the time to do these little gags. I know that these little finales all the time, and it is true. Yes, we have the advertisement for the Super Bowl, which is great. Then we end up having, what else do we have? Oh yeah, we have the part, like, yeah, it plays so much sarcasm. It really does. It plays so much sarcasm to, like, finales in general, Like, it's like, it really wanted to make fun of it. It didn't want to be one. It wanted to make fun of one, which is interesting, right? Because, like at the end of the day, throughout majority of the competition, it wasn't really making fun of much, Like, I mean, it had in episode 10, it made a couple jabs at other shows. In a couple of early episodes, did a thing or two. But, like, in general, like, this wasn't really an object show that was trying to be a parody. Right? Like, it wasn't, like... And I'm not saying this is a parody, but I'm saying that, like, it wasn't really giving off immediate vibes of, like, oh, this is gonna... I'm gonna do, like, make a meta commentary about how finales are stupid, right? Like it really didn't feel like it was gonna do that. But it kind of does end up doing that, of course, with the finale, with the villain being like, haha, I'm gonna now say my evil plan. So yeah, they end up going to the bathroom to pee themselves. Oh my god. Yes, then we end up having, what is this backstory? They are British, yes, okay. They were a child. They were sent away to a British academy where How Could This Happen to Me was playing, and everybody hated How Could This Happen to Me, except for them who liked How Could This Happen to Me. So then everybody called them crazy because they liked How Could This Happen to Me, and they started to form an evil plan. And then 7 years later, they still had no idea what the evil plan was gonna be because they didn't know about the show existing. Okay, that was really funny. Yes, that was a great gag. And then after they discovered the show existed, they started forming their evil plan to take down the show. Dude, I love it. Oh my god. You started making the evil plan to destroy the show 7 years before the show existed. So you just didn't write anything for 7 years. Okay, that's great. Yeah, what else do we have? We have the scene here. What's the scene? Oh yeah, where the My Way or the Highway. Oh yeah. But you see, like, okay. Here's the deal. I remember that this scene WebzForevz like chatted about it like this year or something. Being like, this is to put into perspective, and I think it really does, like, absolutely, it puts into perspective, no pun intended, where like you can see in this shot, where like Moonstone is on about to go out on the highway, you see that the perspective is inverted, right? The road goes from super wide to in, because but that's the opposite way of how perspective works, right? If the perspective starts with the road close and then it goes further away and gets smaller, it doesn't get bigger. Right? But I think that's like, this scene puts just into perspective how much of like a kid this still is, right? Like at the end of the day, like this is still like, at the end of the day, a show that was made by somebody really young, you know? And like the fact that it's even masqueraded is relatively solid, because like sometimes you kind of forget, you know, when you just get into it. But I think that these types of like technical blunders, where like it's not even a blunder necessarily, because it doesn't matter that much, but it's that type of thing where it's like the only way you would ever fuck this up is if you had proper no idea about the world. It's like something like that, right? And it's like, it really puts into perspective where it's like, how does this show succeed when we have such monumental lackings still? But like, it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, this show, right, and you know, at the time probably Webs like didn't understand a lot of things, right? A lot of things, didn't know about the nitty-gritty of a lot of things. However, at the end of the day, this show and what this does, I mean, like, it understood the fundamental concepts. You know, like, it managed to clock how the fundamental concepts of a show should play out, you know? It managed to make a finale that had consistent gags. It figured out how to make a show memorable. How do you make a show memorable? You make a show memorable by creating gags and then calling back to those same gags, right? Like, at the end of the day, it does that, you know, and that creates and that helps bolster its own world, that helps create its own world, right? Like, when you have this consistent gag and storyline about how could this happen to me, that keeps getting developed with the gummy bears, then they have the other gummy bears, and the sister, and it's a villain, and it's a parents, right? Like, at the end of the day, when you're mentioning from episode to episode, like, you start to bolster up that storyline, like, you're starting to pick that stuff up, and like that eventually, you know, gets you more into it feels like a more developed word, because as you're watching it more, you're getting more understanding of the things that the show's mentioning that you wouldn't if you just started watching from that episode. And that is a fundamental understanding of object show nature that gets like that at the end of the day is really important to understand. How do you make a good show? You need to make a good show by captivating people. And how do you captivate people? By doing stuff like that, right? By starting to construct stories arcs and elements that grow as the series progresses, and therefore you can you can have things where if people watch, they'll get rewarded by more knowledge, right? Instead of just like kind of like if you start watching episode 7, it's the same thing as if you started watching episode 1 but with 5 less contestants, right? Pretty much, right? Like you need to be capable of earning knowledge from the episode that make you need to watch the previous episode to watch it. Otherwise, this is not going to be a good watching experience. And this show understood that. It did. This show understood that. A show like BFDI absolutely understood that. Dude, but the situation that something like BFDI original gets set itself in after a couple episodes, like what even happens? We end up going over. Dude, what even happens to we end up having new different systems. This cake and steak a million times. They switched up the song. Now there's points, and then we have the point from the previous challenges. They're all combining, and then you have the other thing, the alliance, freeze. Like that's like you end up having all this shit. And it's like at the end of the day, there's just this situation where everything keeps on going. But anyways, that's kind of the more general chat about the like why I think that. A show like Aswell Entities worked, even though at the end of the day, first of all, yes, this is still season 1 of of what is about to be the more popular season 2, right? Like Extraordinarily Excellent Entities, I think is what it's called, is the more popular one. However, you have to I'm sure that'll improve on this. However, the fundamentals still get picked up right here, right? Because if we wouldn't have understood the fundamentals here, we wouldn't have understood the fundamentals there and would have failed, right? So that means that we can see where the fundamentals are being used here, especially here where there's less distraction from just good writing. And here you can more see just the fundamentals playing an effect, and that's about it, right? Like the fundamentals is what make the show work, and that's about it, right? So yeah, we end up having the challenge, by the way. So the challenge ends up being to go to the... Okay, so as the purple gummy bear says, you have to go to the city, okay? And in the city, because there's apparently a city with zombie people, okay? Don't get bit by the zombies and be the last person to survive, make it to the top of the tower or whatever. Be the last person standing and you survive, okay, in the city. And there's a bunch of people in the city. There's a robe over, and everybody can compete for some reason to make because that makes the entire show irrelevant. Everybody except Micro, who's dead. By the way, I still love okay, I do like the consistent guide that it does. Of despite the fact that every other character can get revived normally, Micro for some reason just cannot be revived, and nobody explains why, how, or any reason. They just say Micro is dead, and that's about it. That is the type of gag that I do like, If it's a serious show, I would call it it's that type of thing where it's like when you give a show that type of vibe, then that type of thing becomes funny. Because for example, if for I season 2 or whatever, randomly came in and a character died and they couldn't get revived for some reason, just that one for no apparent reason, right? I will start going, what the fuck, right? Because it doesn't make sense. It's kind of weird. However, in the situation, where the show's kind of, acting like a joke and doing non-logical things, and even mentioning the fact that they're doing non-logical things, that's like, okay, yeah, sure, right? Then it becomes a funny bit rather than just a logical inconsistency, because the show is not playing by logic. It says that it's not directly to your face. So, yeah, I mean, perfectly fine by me. But yeah, we end up having the start. We end up having, how could this happen to me? With the gummy bears making fun of each other, right? Because of the song. We end up having the renewed intro, which is just a stock song. The low-key old intro was better. But yeah, I also will appreciate, by the way, that I don't think I pointed this out during part 1, but the audio was fixed. Oh. It took until the finale. It took 1 year for Webz to find out that having spatial audio is a terrible idea, but we managed to solve it, so that's good. Which is nice. At least it made the finale a much smoother watch, which is nice. So yeah, we end up British noises. The blank. Yeah, for example, a character like the blank that was never really that relevant. However, them showing up here again as a zombie and doing all that stuff. You see, added on development, added on lore to the series, because you can because you find it way cooler if you know who blank is. Exactly. You see, this show nails that. This show solves that. And that's why Excellent Entities is still a watchable experience today, despite the fact that it's old, because I understand that. There we go. That is the reason. Did you want to know? There you have it. That's how Excellent Entities still work. It lacks so much, but it had the fundamentals, so it's still watchable, and I can still sit here and give a relatively lengthy discussion about it, because it does that correct, and I can use this, and I've used throughout this video a lot of little quick pointers about things that this show does, that like considering I consider especially being old, I consider a lot of these old object shows kind of like nowadays I consider it a kind of proof of concepts in a weird way, where it's like, for somebody making a show nowadays, here's how this was, right? Like, there's a reason why shows today are kind of different to the other ones. Well, the main one's B. However, like the reason it's like also, we've learned from this stuff about what people enjoy, what people don't enjoy, right? And being able to properly look at something old and be able to go, this is why X, this is why Y, when at the time maybe there wasn't that much of an understanding, because the people in the OSC were just literally younger overall, right? Because at the end of the day, what happens a lot in the OSC is that the OSC has slowly grown as the creators have slowly grown older, because like grown older and therefore better, because it started off as 13-year-olds making a show, and then the following people that started making a show were also 13, so then it slowly came in with like the amount of adults that were making a show originally was not that many, right? So yeah, all that stuff kept on going. Man, I'm really yapping. Let's dude, how long is this section gonna be? But yeah, it turns out that the zombies are like not the danger of the city at all. Like they bite like 2 total people. And they're doing, oh yeah, even Justin Bieber showing up is a reference. Like, you say references. But yeah, sorry. But it turns out that like people just get pushed off a cliff. Like pretty much half of 90, no, sorry, okay, maybe not 90%, like 70% of the viewers get pushed off a cliff, including the host, and then die. So it turns out that the scariest part of the city is the cliff at the end of it. Okay, which is great. It's not even the zombies. They end up hiring a robot lamp to destroy everybody for some reason, even though they were hired to be a lamp. What? They were a robot to lamp toaster, which is an interesting combo of things. But yeah, we end up having some fellas, some Moonstone then dies, yes, because they end up getting crushed. Then we end up having a chippers ad, yes we do, we end up ordering some chippers. Then we end up having a 40-year head start. I like how, by the way, there's a never moment where the road is completely fucked, because you see the road... Dude, it's so funny. The road lines are on horizontal, right? Because we're looking at it from the side, okay? But then when we're looking at it head on, okay, we were like, okay, I must make it horizontal again. Because that's how it was, which means that the road lines on that shot that's looking just straight head on at the road is just completely wrong. You see what I mean? Like, it's just funny. But yeah, that's like a fig. Then Mango eventually ends up giving up and being like, no, go on without me, Cracker. And then they proceed to get quote unquote eaten apparently by the fellas, even though they really aren't, because they end up dipping away and having a flashback of Cracker, that's about to go up to the last floor and win the $1 billion, win the 1 million or whatever it is, and then they end up going over to the roof where Mango is there somehow, and they end up coming in and throwing the briefcase around second, and they end up having an epic fight because aren't we like extremely stupid? And yeah, we are extremely stupid, but yeah, they end up having a fight, and at the last second Mango manages to defeat Cracker, and Chocolate Bar goes like, yo, I mean, I'm also by the way supposed to be dead, but let's chill. First of all, falling off a cliff doesn't necessarily mean you die. Just saying. I mean, like, okay, for a person it would, but like a chocolate bar, if I threw a chocolate bar off a cliff, like, I mean, it might break. I mean, it depends on what protected it is. Okay, never mind. A chocolate bar might break, but a bunch of items might not. Right? Like, if you throw a pillow down a cliff, for example, like, would the pillow die? Probably not, right? But like, yeah. So we end up having the manga wins until apparently they broke the rules. Oh no! They were asked to leave the competition because they apparently broke the rules because last second Gummy Bear was like, no, he didn't. He broke the rules. He said you can't do the blah, blah, blah. I should win. And well, Chocolate Bar's like, okay then you cannot win, and Cracker wins instead. So yeah, we end up having two endings, by the way, which used to. You have to go to the description to click them, by the way, because back in the day we had YouTube annotations. Remember those? YouTube annotations. Oh my God, YouTube annotations, my beloved. I remember those. Those were how they did Choose Your Own Adventures. To be 100% honest, I am extremely surprised, especially because we updated thumbnails and stuff and everything, that we haven't gone back to this episode and added an end card, right? Surely, just add an end card with the two endings. Like, just do that. Like, what? Surely. I mean, I guess it's in the description, but like, you can do this update. It's easy, right? Like, it takes you not 4 minutes. It'll take about like 4 minutes. Like, being 100% realistic how much time it takes. It would not take that long. And overall, the endings on. Ending number one was the ending where at the last second, Gummy Bear, since they won, quote unquote, ended up having a letter because they told them that they want to be somebody who's strong and epic, right? And they ended up sending the letter to Chocolate Bar, and Chocolate Bar just doesn't read it. So that's great. To be fair, I wouldn't either, probably. So yeah, apparently, they're gonna have a season 2 because this ending one announces that there's about to be a season 2 because the season 1 did really well, which is epic, by the way. Dude, I'll be very curious to see this. I'm not gonna see it today, but like, it'll be very interesting to see like how season 2 is gonna differ. Right? Because is it gonna differ? I mean, surely. I mean, okay, it's gonna differ, but I don't know if it's gonna differ at the start. Basically, that's kind of the interesting question. And then the second one is a Mango pretty much giving a flashback after 3 months about what everything was going on with everybody, which is interesting. You get to hear the most batshit insane stories, like freaking English Muffin took over the world, married the queen to decapitate the queen and take over the world. I'm like, what? Clay went out to kindergarten class, like, murder everything. Then Chalky went to the Olympics for bunny throwing or so whatever, and then ended up because of their addiction to murdering bunnies, ended up murdering everything. So then they ended up in a high confinement prison. Okay, then like Moon ended up being sent to Moonstone ended up being sent to a mental institute. Okay, sure. Muffin ended up apparently being found dead in a parking lot after trying to switch back constantly. Cracker was part of Click's class, so they died. And then Manga's been chilling. By the way, this is also going to be interesting to see because, like, I mean, at the end of the day, this is the thing that was said in one of the endings. So theoretically, if we're starting X Entity Season 2, would this apply? Because this would be pretty extreme. I mean, like, 3 people would be dead. Like 3 additional people would be dead. 2 more would be just in jail. So it's like, what? I feel there's no way. Surely, I feel like this is a non-canonical ending. I'm not. I feel like both of these endings are pretty non-canonical. I mean, ending 1 could be canonical, but I feel like at least this one. There's no way this is canonical. There's no way. Like, there's no way I'm gonna start season 2 and it's gonna be Moonstone in a high confinement in a mental institute, whatever it's called, right? Like, it's surely not, right? Or Chalk in a prison, right? Like, it's not, like, right? That cannot happen. But yeah, I already gave most of my main pointers on why I think that this series still does work. Because overall, I definitely did not mind my time with this show. I thought it was pretty solid, all things said. So yeah, let's I'm gonna do my outro now. And that is the first day of the road to 3EE, which is, it's a thing I had to do because at the end of the day, it's probably going to take 3 days, I just realized, maybe even more. Dude, it's going to take a while because Extraordinary International Entities is massive, and, something like, THREEEE also doesn't have that many episodes, but they're all gigantic as well, right? But yeah, overall, I mean, watching this season 1, it was definitely it was a pretty refreshing experience to watch a show that's a bit older. But I do definitely think that it still survives. I absolutely do think that it still survives. It sucks for the audio. That's the one thing. That's the one reason I don't watch it. Like, I wouldn't ever recommend somebody watching it on a computer, because it's just the audio sucks. It's so bad. Like, if there was a way to fix the audio of these episodes, man, I would take it in a heartbeat. Because other than that, I still think that, I mean, like, of course, again, some things are dumb, but it's not paced badly. It's not paced badly. It understands how a show should progress. It is not afraid to try out some different jokes from time to time, right? It does relatively unique challenges overall, right? It improves constantly throughout the season, in various aspects, like animation, everything. Like, it does a lot of things right, and I think it's a solid watchable experience. Just like how. I mean, look, in my opinion, a lot of old shows are still very watchable experiences. At least everyone that I've watched, Old Object Overload was very watchable. Old Object Lockdown was very watchable. And Old This was very watchable. Like, I don't believe, and I still am fully of the opinion that Old BFDI is also very, very watchable, right? Like, I don't believe that just because something was made 12 years ago, it should be completely disregarded as, this is garbage. Because, I mean, like, how would people have gotten into object shows back then if they were garbage? They're not. Right, like, it's not like we have older object shows just dealt with a different set of tools, okay, and had a different set of understanding, but at the end of the day, they still used their own tactics and their own methods, which are different than the ones today, but it doesn't make them bad, it makes them different, and it's interesting to look at the differences, especially because these are a bit more raw, right, and therefore you can more properly see what's up with them. Right, so yeah, I absolutely think that old object shows should still be appreciated, absolutely, in the modern day. I mean, I don't think that they should be left behind. So I completely don't mind doing an episode entirely on this show, because this show deserves it. All 3 seasons absolutely deserve their own episode. In the same way that the MCN seasons all did pretty well and deserved their own episodes, I believe that this also deserves its own episode. As this was really big, the second season was even bigger, and 3 is obviously a big thing. So yeah, absolutely. 4 excellent entities. We're all caught up. There's a season 2 to do, and there's a season 3 to do. Join us next time on the road to 3EE. Good luck to me. See you.